Welcome to Integrative Nurse Coaches in Action, the podcast where nurses, healthcare professionals, and consumers come to hear from inspirational nurse leaders in health and wellness coaching. We cover the latest innovations, ideas, and breakthroughs from nurses who are shifting the paradigm of disease care to health care through the art and science of nurse coaching. The 2020-2025 Dietary Guidelines for Americans states that adults of legal drinking age can choose not to drink or to drink in moderation by limiting intake to 2 drinks or less in a day for men and 1 drink or less in a day for women when alcohol is consumed. Drinking less is better for health than drinking more. And what are the possibilities for you when you want to explore sobriety in your precious life? Sober, curious lifestyle is prevalent in our culture today, and why not choose to open up to the power of partnership with a nurse coach to support you? Integrative nurse coach Devon Donkin shares some very insightful, educational, and inspiring thoughts, tips, and tools to support sobriety and freedom from alcohol. Before we get to today's podcast, let's take 3 deep breaths in and out together. 1, 2, 3. Now we're ready. As a board-certified integrative nurse coach, Devon Donkin helps people break free from alcohol so they can reach their goals and live a healthier, happier life. She has over a decade of bedside nursing experience in neonatal intensive care, attending births for high-risk infants. She's a neonatal resuscitation instructor, an infant care and infant safety educator. Devon lives in San Francisco Bay Area with her 9-year-old son, husband, and golden doodle therapy dog, where she enjoys outdoor adventures and lifting weights at the gym. Welcome, everyone, to the Integrative Nurse Coaches in Action podcast. My name is Nicole Villano. I am your host, and I'm also a board-certified integrative nurse coach. And today, I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming our next guest, who is an alcohol-free lifestyle coach, all the way from Forest Knolls, California. It's really interesting to me to have her on our podcast today because this alcohol-free lifestyle has been really high in the social media space, and I'm hearing a lot more about it. And I knew that I had to have her on the podcast because she's specializing in this area. And we, of course, love to hear everyone's story surrounding it, how she got herself involved in this. So I'm really looking forward to it. I have had some experiences in my life related to alcohol, and I hope that we can get into some of that. And before we even get to that, we just really need to invite Devon Donkin to say hello. So welcome, Devon Donkin.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm happy to be here and excited to talk about whatever comes up today.
I know, I am too. And I'm really interested to know a few things. And before we even get there, I think we need to take a trip down history lane, right? We do need to understand how you even decided to become a nurse.
Great. So nursing was a career change for me. I had done quite a few things leading up to that, including working in cafes and restaurants, and I was a veterinarian technician. And what else did I do? Oh, I became a real estate agent for about a year. And I also am a licensed esthetician. I still keep my license current. I've always loved skincare, so I did that for a while. After doing real estate for about a year, I kind of got into that because my mom has been in the business for a long time. I thought, oh, that'd be interesting. But after I did that for a while, I was like, yeah, this doesn't really feel like my calling. And I knew that I always loved health and science. And my roommate at the time was in med school, and we were talking about opportunities, and somehow nursing came up. And I thought, that seems right up my alley. So I just said, hey, I'm going to take an anatomy class at College of Marin, and I just fell in love with it. And so I just one class after another, did all my prereqs and got into nursing school. I went to University of San Francisco, but honestly, I didn't think that I would work in a hospital for some reason. When I decided to become a nurse, I just thought, I love health and wellness and I want to help people with their health. And so I'm going to be a nurse. And, but then once you're actually in nursing school and doing the thing everybody's talking about, what area in the hospital are you going to work in and this and that. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have no idea until I stepped into when I did my labor and delivery rotation at UCSF. And then I got to be in the NICU for a day. And then I was with all the little babies, and I loved the nurse who was showing me around that day. And that was the first time that I felt like I could see myself doing that type of nursing. And so I ended up doing my preceptorship and then graduating and getting a job at Children's Hospital in Oakland, which is where I did my preceptorship, worked there for a few years. And then I've been at the local hospital in Marin County for the past 7 years. And so nursing has been, like I said, a career change for me. I've been specializing in NICU for the past 11 years.
I love your journey. I love how you tried everything before you even discovered nursing, from real estate to cafes to esthetician. Wow. That just, in a second career too, right? Makes our nurses much more well-rounded, having so much experience.
I know. And I think it's interesting that I never saw myself working in a hospital. And when I was in nursing school, I said, I had friends that were like, I want to do ER. And I thought, I'm never doing emergency type work, And now here I am, like, responding to emergencies. It's just it's interesting how, I say I don't want to do this or I don't think I'm going to do that. And then I end up doing it. And it ends up being, quite fulfilling. It's exciting to be, at the hospital I worked before. When I first started doing NICU, it was just taking care of the babies that were transferred from other hospitals from where they were born. And now at the hospital I've been at for the last 7 years is sort of what happens before they go to a higher level of care. So I go to the deliveries now and kind of see what happens on that end. So it's really exciting to be present when babies are being born.
Oh, I bet. I remember I did this. I was doing a fundraiser, and one of the things that we got to do was go into the NICU. And me being an adult nurse my whole career, so intensive care in the adult space, and then going in the NICU, and they presented me with the tiny little blood pressure cuff, and then the tiny little diaper. I was just in awe of the little babies because I'd never experienced anything like that before. And it was just such an amazing experience. And the nurses there were so wonderful and so skilled in their area and so compassionate and wise.
Yeah, I love how everything is little, like you said. I don't know if that's what attracted me to doing NICU, but yeah, it was just something about being with the tiny humans that felt like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yes. And then so that space, so being in the NICU and learning the skills of the NICU nurse, and then being able to move around a little bit too within that, gaining more and more skill.
Yeah. And then at the hospital where I am, so I go to the births, and then we also cross-train to doing postpartum care. So then I help take care of the moms after they've had their babies, and then take care of the well babies too. And we do couplet care. So the moms and the babies stay together in our hospital. And so you have, one nurse per mom and baby couplet.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm always so fascinated in this area because it's an area that I'm not, fully confident in, or not even fully, I'm not just not confident in it. So it's always just so great to hear all the things happening in the NICU and with babies and moms and all of that. So it sounds like you love NICU, and yet you still were looking, sounds like I don't even know the story about how you found nurse coaching. So how does this all work and combine with the work you're doing today?
Right. So yeah, as much as I love the work I'm doing, I'm doing it part-time, which works out really well for our family. I have a 9-year-old son. And so, but it's, as I'm sure working in a hospital is taxing. It's these long shifts, the 12 hours, it's prepping the night before, the kind of the recovery in the days after, that has led me sort of wondering, like, is there something else that I could do to help people with their health, which was what inspired me to become a nurse in the first place. And so a part of me has been kind of, searching for like, there's something else. I know there's something else that I could do, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I feel this calling. And so it kind of leads into my journey with alcohol and giving up alcohol. It was last summer. It was on Father's Day that I decided to quit drinking because I had a bad hangover and I was just tired of having that same message come through that this isn't good for me. And so I was like, that's it. I've had enough. And it was actually 2 weeks into my sobriety that I was receiving emails, and this idea of becoming a health coach popped in because I received an email from someone who said, oh, I'm a health coach and doing this and that. I thought, that's exactly what I can see myself doing. Like, this is the thing where I can help people with their health. And I honestly think that it was because I gave up drinking, because for most of my life, I've been really into taking good care of my body. It was something that I learned from my father at a young age. When I was having a hard time with something, he would say, if you eat right and you exercise and you take care of yourself, then everything else just feels a little bit easier. And so that was sort of a little seed that was planted in me from my dad, from a young age. And so I have, for the most part, taken good care of myself, except for the fact that I was drinking amounts of alcohol that were not good for my health. So I really think it was removing that substance that this idea of becoming a health coach actually came into my field. And so I started, thinking about that. And I thought, I'm going to start a business and start coaching, and this is going to be great. And while I had a lot to offer at the time, I thought, it'd be really good to actually get some training on like how to actually coach. Even though we kind of do that, in the hospital working with patients, we're sort of doing it without maybe calling it coaching. I thought it would be good to have some formal training. And so there were, some ads coming up on social media around coaching. And I looked into this program. And then I started doing more research on other programs. And then I discovered Inca. And I was sort of like going back and forth with the idea for a good part of last year. And as the more that I looked into it, the more that it sounded like it was going to be the perfect program. So I ended up signing up for it at the end of last year. And then I started in January of this year and then graduated in July.
Woo! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. And you also passed your board certification too.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So Devon Donkin nurse coach board certified.
Yes.
Woo! I love it. It has a beautiful ring to it. And I love how you connected the dots with choosing sobriety, and then this opened up for you. Coaching opened up for you this new avenue in which you could, continue to take care of yourself and care for others, but in this different realm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. So since January of this year, which was, 11 months ago.
Seems like forever ago.
Yeah. Please tell us what's been going on. Like how have you seen yourself transition into this nurse coach board certified role?
Yeah, I mean, as I think back to January and the beginning of the Inca program, like so much of it was about self-awareness, right? And looking inside and how do we take care of ourselves so that we can help other people. And it just seems like every page that I read in the book and throughout the training was like, yes, this is it. This is everything that I have thought about, like as, like I said, becoming a nurse and how to help people with their health. And it was more just the program was so much more spiritual and kind of like multidimensional than I thought it would be. It wasn't just the surface of like the physical body, but like, how does that impact our spiritual dimension and our well-being on a holistic level? So yeah, I mean, it was like we learned the fundamentals and then we get into the coaching, and that was really rewarding to work with people and to get the experience and have the privilege to coach people throughout the program. And then, and then it's like, okay, well, how do I get clients? And I ended up getting a client from someone I coached in the program. And this person wasn't so much about alcohol, although he did quit drinking on his own because part of it was he hadn't been to a doctor in about 10 years. It's hard to say how old he is because I didn't ask him, but he might have been like, I don't know, maybe 60s, 70s. I feel like it's hard to tell with people and their age these days, but he kind of knew. I know him locally. He has a business in town, and we've just always had a good relationship. And so when I mentioned that I was doing this coaching thing, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll do this with you." And then he became a client because he had things that he wanted to continue to work on. But he said it was such a blessing that I said yes to you, Devon, because I knew when I told you that I hadn't been to the doctor in 10 years, that you would tell me that that was something that I should do. And he did. But before he actually had his appointment, we had been just talking about lifestyle choices, to kind of help him feel better. He was in, pretty good health, but felt like some things were off. So one of the things that he wasn't doing really was drinking water. So he started out drinking water, and he would make comments about like, I always see these yoga people with these water bottles and like, and, and now he's the guy who's got the water bottles all the time. And he says, I started drinking water, and now he goes, I look at water like it's medicine. He was so surprised by how much mental clarity he got, and how, his energy level and all the things. And then we were working on, he wanted to start exercising more. So we came up with some SMART goals around hiking and how often. Started doing that. We looked at his diet, looking at a way to make that more nutritious, getting more protein in. Well, then he finally got to his doctor's appointment and was diagnosed with stage 2 hypertension. And so good thing that he went, because, we know that can be a silent killer. Like, people may not have very many symptoms, and then, it can cause major problems. So he was so happy that he had gone to the doctor, but that was already making some lifestyle choices. And then he was, bragging to his doctor about how he has a nurse coach, and she was really happy to hear that. So yeah, that is. And then, what, he decided to quit drinking because he knew about my journey, but he kind of did his own research as we started working together and learned that alcohol isn't good for high blood pressure. So he just decided to give that up on his own. And, he was drinking probably a glass or two of wine most nights out of the week, and, was able to do that. So yeah, I mean, that was someone I worked with just on kind of general lifestyle. And then, some people say it's good to have a niche when you're in this industry. And I thought, because alcohol has such an impact on people's health, I mean, it not only can it affect high blood pressure, but it disrupts hormones. I mean, you must know, you work in women's health, and menopause, perimenopause, disrupts hormone. It's not good for our gut health. It wipes out good bacteria. It causes our brains to shrink. I mean, it really just causes a large number of health issues, and it's linked with several different kinds of cancers. And because it's had such a big impact on my well-being, I thought this would be a really good area to help people learn how to give that up in a way where they feel like, they're not deprived, really, like they can get through the craving. So I work with the physiology, because we can say in our minds, like, hey, I want to do this. I mean, how many of you have done this where you drink too much the night before, you wake up the next morning and you think, I'm not going to drink for a while. And then by 5 o'clock, you're pouring yourself another glass of wine. Pretty common. I've been there. It is a highly addictive substance. It can be difficult to will yourself out of it. So working with the physiology and the biochemistry is, how can we balance our nervous systems through good sleep, exercise, proper nutrition, balancing blood sugar, so that we can get past the craving, right? Because it's that initial craving that people usually give into. The rational mind gets overridden by the craving. So if you can balance the body chemistry through other practices like somatics, breath work, like I said, balancing blood sugar, it makes it easier to move past the cravings, and so that people can support their goals of not drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only the physical side, but then also the habitual and then the ritual side of things too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sure you're helping with all that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, for a lot of people, it's that, evening time, usually between 4 and 7 o'clock, where people want to have that transition from, the busy work life, or, parenting and all that. The energy kind of stacks up at the end of the day, and people want to have a transition into the evening where they feel like they can sign off from the day's tasks and feel a little bit more relaxed. So, I mean, for most people, alcohol is like a given. It's just a thing to do. You want to turn that switch off. But, when you're looking at 1 or 2 drinks every night, a handful of times a week, that's getting into that sort of risky kind of behavior where it can impact your health. And I think people, they kind of know that it's not good for them, but it's hard to not do it because it's such a big part of our society and it's become so normalized to drink regularly that most people think it's okay.
Mm. Yeah, you do see a lot of that. All of the commercials on TV and glamorizing having a glass of wine or a shot of whiskey or whatever it is. And you see
Yeah.
all the shows on Netflix and so forth that, yeah, it has become much more normalized. And yet you've shared some of the detrimental side of how it affects our health. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're right, people do know that, and yet they still are choosing, some are choosing to have those drinks. So, in your work, what are you seeing as some people's, I guess, pushbacks from likely most of them are past pre contemplation when they're connecting with you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I'm sure there's still some things within
Mm-hmm.
that they're like, whoa, I didn't realize it was going to be this difficult or whatever. What are you
Mm-hmm.
seeing when you're working with people?
I think people are motivated by different things. I mean, some clients are like, they want to know all the health risks, right? Like, oh, I didn't realize it was that bad for me. Or I've had people say, oh, well, it seems healthier than soda. Or, for nurses, it's like, oh, that's what you do to kind of get through life because it's stressful and it's hard and, it's traumatizing and you kind of need the alcohol to cope. But the people that I work with, they fall into the category of gray area drinkers. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. So it's not just like a social media kind of buzz word. It comes from medical research. So back in 2010, the American dietary guidelines were up for review. And so they look at nutrition and calories and beverages that people can consume in terms of how that can support optimal health and disease prevention. So then when they were up for review in 2010, they said, well, we can't ignore alcohol, right? Because if a lot of people are consuming this substance, we need to look at how this impacts people's health. And so they came up with this term gray area drinkers. So gray area drinkers, not the casual drinker who has maybe one or two drinks a year. And they're not the person that has to go into like a detox needing like medical intervention, like is in an acute phase where they have to go to rehab. That's sort of the extreme side. The gray area drinker is sort of everybody in between. When you think about it, it's most people that drink alcohol. So they're consuming, a handful of drinks a week, with their meals, they're having it at celebrations. They could be someone who just drinks on the weekends, but they're having like 4 glasses of wine on the weekend, and they're doing it regularly. And most gray area drinkers have been able to quit for a period of time. They've done like a 30-day cleanse or a dry January, or they've stopped for periods of time, but they kind of come back to the same patterns. Or there's someone who's tried to moderate and then they come back to like over drinking again, and it's this area of like trying to moderate for me. And I know for a lot of other people, that is, in my opinion, more mentally exhausting than just quitting altogether. Because when you're moderating and you're trying to like come up with a number of drinks every week that you think is okay, it becomes more of like, how am I going to plan this? Am I going to have 2 drinks tonight or 4 on the weekend? Or am I going to have 5 on the weekend? Or, it just becomes this whole process of like, it takes up so much cognitive space that I know that's a challenge for people. I have people that they try to moderate, they're like, oh, I want to go from 10 drinks a week to 4, and then it's like, well, how are you going to do that? Are you going to just drink them all in one night? Or are you going to do 2 on one night and 2 on the other night? So, I mean, it's helpful to cut back, right? But my goal is to help people be able to quit altogether because we know that there is no safe or healthy recommended amount of alcohol for anyone. And when you're getting into 2 or more drinks a week, that's causing your brain to atrophy. So it's really something that, I think, and I hope that someday we'll look at alcohol like we did cigarettes because of the amount of health impacts it has. I mean, it kills around 3 million people a year. There's 3 million deaths that are alcohol related every year. So, I mean, that's something that I think it's like there almost needs to be like a black box warning on, the label of alcohol.
Sure, that's a significant amount of people. And it's interesting. I've never heard of the gray area drinker. So I'm glad that you brought that to the table here. Lots of our listeners likely have already heard about that, but likely some of us haven't, like me. And it's surprising that it took until 2010 for them to realize, hey, this needs to be
Yeah.
part of this. Yeah. You're really bringing up a lot of interesting facts and interesting education for us here too. So I would love to know like a day in the life of like, what's it look like for you when you're in a coaching session, and, what does that look like for your clients?
Well, let's see. Where do I begin? So, in the initial session that we have, there's a lot of, I'm asking questions to really get like a timeline of how alcohol is played out in this person's life. Like, did they start, how old were they? Was it in their, did their parents drink? And like, what did that look like in college? And what does it look like now? Like, what's their relationship to alcohol? And how do they think it's impacting their life? And then what is their goal with it? Do they want to moderate? Or are they looking to quit? Do they want to stop for 30 days? And then we kind of figure out together, like, well, has there been a period of time when they've been able to quit? And if they have, what is it that they did that was helpful to them? Did they exercise more? Did they eat differently? Did they do breath work? Did they take certain supplements? Were they partaking in more creative projects that they like gardening or, playing music or painting? And if, whatever the things that were helpful to them during those times and they've been able to quit, then let's do more of that. So start by doing more of that. And then I can offer some other resources that will help them, get through the cravings, support their nervous systems through like certain breathwork exercises. There's somatic practices like shaking. There's things like Tai Chi. It kind of depends. It's pretty customized for the individual, but in general, we're supporting the person's nervous system so that they can feel calm and like they don't have to reach for alcohol every time. A lot of it is balancing the neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, and GABA are the ones at play that get depleted every time somebody drinks, which also, drinking interferes with sleep. And the sleep is the time when we're rebuilding the neurotransmitters. So how can we support sleep? Gut health, the neurotransmitters are also made in the gut. So working with the diet, nutrition, and then we go, okay, well, did you try this? And if it worked, great, do more of that. And if it didn't, that's totally fine. We can try something else.
Yeah. Sounds great. So really, of course, we know as nurse coaches, we're putting the person in the driver's seat of how they want to, proceed. Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that. But that's just a whole other reiteration of the idea of having a coach for the support mm-hmm. that you're offering and the continuous feedback, I suppose, their ability to reach out, to ask questions, and then you're asking those really deep questions to have them dive in a little bit deeper.
Right. Yeah. And it's, our nervous systems just get so overwhelmed, especially if you're a parent, you've got kids that are running around and needing things all the time. So it's like helping, parents kind of get through those moments too. And then I figure I should mention that I did do another training that I just finished. It was a 7-week program. And this woman, Jolene Park, is someone that I've learned from, where I've learned a lot of this information on how to help people with their nervous systems. She is one of the leading experts in gray area drinking. She's got a TED Talk about the Nourish method in gray area drinkers. She's a functional nutritionist and an expert in somatic nervous system regulation. So she's been working with clients and helping them quit drinking for several years. So she created a program to help coaches that want to help people in the gray area to support them in quitting drinking. So that was a very impactful course that I took. I learned tools for myself and then also more tools that I can use to help my clients with.
I love that. I love, just continuously learning. So how we can support ourselves. I heard you say first, mm-hmm. and then how you can support other people.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I really truly believe after taking the Integrative Nurse Coach Academy's Integrative Nurse Coach Certificate program, it's like, we finally realized, we're supposed to put ourselves first.
Right.
After years of not doing that.
Yes.
Yes.
And I realized as I took the course too, there were a lot of things that I was already kind of doing just based on my own like passion for knowledge around health and wellness and fitness and nutrition. I had a client who had been following me on Instagram, and I openly started sharing my journey about giving up alcohol during the last year.
And now a word from our sponsor. The Integrative Nurse Coach Academy offers nurses innovative approaches to re-energize and expand your nursing practice with new skills and tools that focus on lifestyle health and well-being. As an integrative nurse coach, you will confidently promote wellness and resiliency by guiding your clients, patients, and communities to deepen their connections to inner healing resources and expand their capacities to make meaningful choices for healthy lifestyle change. Plus, you'll learn critical self-care tools to actively take care of your own health and well-being on the journey. Join the global Integrative Nurse Coach Academy community and rediscover your passion for nursing in the online Integrative Nurse Coach Certificate Program. Learn more about our programs at inursecoach.com. And when you register for the Integrative Nurse Coach Certificate Program, be sure to use the code ACTION to get $100 off the Part 1 and 2 bundle. Now, back to the podcast.
When I openly started sharing my journey about giving up alcohol during the last year, and she was like, has this been easy for you with the cravings? Because it kind of looks like it's been easy for you. And I thought, oh my gosh, like it hasn't been easy. But on one hand, I think because I had a lot of these foundational pieces in place already, I was exercising at the gym, going on hikes, spending time in nature, trying to get sunlight as often as I can, eating regularly, having breakfast, eating a lot of protein. I think those things, by balancing my biochemistry and nervous system, did make it easier for me to get past the cravings. And so as I've learned through this program, and now it's like, oh yes, these pieces are very important. Jolene Park says that you can cover a lot of bases by focusing on the basics, right? What does that mean? Prioritize sleep, eat good food, right? Get lots of protein, get exercise, breath work, sunlight. Sort of basic things will cover a lot of the bases in your life of helping you feel strong, empowered, have a little bit more positive outlook on life, make it a little bit easier to get through the challenging moments.
Yes, the bases. Mm-hmm. The bases are the basics. And yet they're not always that basic for many people.
Exactly. Right. Like the client who wasn't drinking water. I mean, that was life-changing for him.
Right. Right.
And for a lot, some people aren't having breakfast, and, just putting that in, some people are surprised how much more, even keeled they feel throughout the day.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of the person who is like, okay, this is what I want to do. I would like to take a journey towards sobriety. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that they could focus on? Of course, the best thing is to work with you. I mean, of course. And if they wanted to try some things on their own, what have you learned in your experience that are some of the kind of like biggest bangs for the buck? So you mentioned some of them, but maybe more detail on some.
I think the first step is not having it in the house, right? Because I know for me, anytime I try to moderate or not quit, if there's a bottle somewhere, I'm going to pour myself something from there. So if you don't have it in the house, it's going to make it a lot easier. Talking about it with somebody, if you have a partner or a friend or someone you trust or a family member, is like, hey, I'm thinking about taking a break from this, just want to share that with you. Just if you could support me, that would be great. Because it is kind of hard to do it alone. It can feel lonely when you're quitting drinking initially, especially if, you have certain friends that you spend time drinking with, or there's social engagements. A lot of people have a hard time with giving it up because of the social anxiety. But I think the more that you kind of show up to friends and to social events without the alcohol, the easier it gets. And the more that you start to realize, I can get through these moments. And then I know that I'm not going to wake up with a hangover. Creating a new, ritual. If it's like 5 o'clock's your time for the drink, maybe you could have a cup of tea. Maybe you could transition by going on a walk. And if it's hard, sometimes just talking about it, like, hey, I really want to have a drink right now. Like, I remember having those moments. I still sometimes think about it. And I remember, still having moments as a parent in the evening where things get really hard. And sometimes I've said, if there's ever been a moment where I want to drink, it's now, and just vocalizing it. And then there's also, you can use a resource like doing some breath work or getting in the sun. But also what I found was really useful, and this is something that I was actually working with an integral coach early in my sobriety, and she was supporting me through, she said, you're learning how to live in your body in a new way now that you're not drinking. And a little light bulb went off. I thought, wow, I'm living in my body in a new way because I'm not drinking alcohol. This is so interesting. And I noticed that in the evenings were particularly hard. I would feel lonely. I didn't know why. I knew that that was part of the reason I wanted to drink. And my coach said, I wonder what would happen if when that feeling comes up, if you just get curious about it. It's like, oh, where is this feeling in my body? I feel lonely. And just kind of really going into it and then seeing what happens. And then after a few moments, it changes, and then you're on to something else. So it's like just sitting with it and naming it. Or sometimes I'll just tell my husband, like, hey, I just feel lonely right now. Or I'll hug my husband or my son, or, if you have a pet, sometimes that helps, just making that connection, petting your dog or your cat. And then noticing when you do feel good. That's been a big thing. I think some people are afraid to feel really good. And so it's like, oh, I actually feel really good right now. What is it about this? Like, is it because I'm looking at a bird outside? And, it's like these little moments where you notice something beautiful, or you look at the look in your child's eyes or in your pet's eyes, and, you make that connection. So embracing more of those feel good moments, it just lets our bodies know that we're safe.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the serotonin and the different neurotransmitters, and it's like, yeah, that would help us with our serotonin.
Right.
That oxytocin flowing, feeling better, feeling good. Oh, I love this. I love that. Those are wonderful things to consider, and to really touch back into ourself, see how we're feeling, recognize, stop for a minute and tap into your inner knowing.
Yeah, I think it's common to hear when people give up drinking is they go, wow, I know for me, it was a big one of like, I can feel all of my feelings and still survive, because sometimes those feelings, they feel like they're an emergency. Like you just want them to stop. But the more that you allow yourself to experience them and get through those moments, the more confident you feel that you can get through them more and more. You start to train yourself that, yes, I'm resilient. I can move through these moments and still be okay without poisoning myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Without poisoning myself. Ooh, when you put it like that, Devon.
Oh. Sometimes it's that tough love though, right?
That's true. Sometimes we do need tough love. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would love to pull this around into our nursing world.
Okay.
And, you mentioned earlier, nurses, we can tend to use substance to numb some of the feelings that we're experiencing on a daily basis, some of the suffering, the trauma, the death, the dying, the anger, all the above, right?
Right.
And a lot of nurses, I often hear them, oh, we're gonna go after shift today for happy hour and so forth. So if a fellow nurse is thinking, gosh, I'm contemplating, exploring sobriety, and yet I don't want to lose my friends, and so what are some things and tips that they can maybe consider exploring?
Let's see. Well, if you're thinking about like, okay, do I want to go to this happy hour? Are you the type of person that could just go to the happy hour and order a tonic water and lime and just hang out and see what happens? What would happen if you went and had the tonic water and your friends got drunk and you hung out and you just kind of observed? Wow, okay. And then what would happen? You'd go home. So a lot of it is like sort of thinking ahead, like, what do I really want? If I still want to go out with my friends, but I don't want to get drunk and I really want to explore this sobriety thing, then it's kind of like an experiment, which is kind of fun. It's like, and if you're worried about what somebody else is going to think, are they really your friend? Right. It's like most of us know that our true friends are going to be there to support us, especially if we're going to make a decision that's good for our health. Right. If you were to tell somebody, I'm just not going to do dairy for a while, or I just don't want to eat meat, or I'm giving up this other thing like sugar because it doesn't make me feel very good. And I kind of want to see how I'll feel without it. Most people would be like, cool, so why can't it be the same for alcohol? I just don't really feel like drinking. And it doesn't even have to be a whole story. It's just like, you know what? kind of just taking a break right now, and I'm going to order a soda water instead. So I can still have fun. Let's try it out. Or if you feel like you can't do that, maybe you just go home and you have a cup of tea and take a bath and go to bed.
Choices.
Mm-hmm.
We have many of them to make in a day.
Right.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of places also have non-alcoholic fancy drinks.
Yeah, there's all kinds of fun drinks that, most bars can make. If you tell them you want to have like a mocktail or something, they're usually happy to make something up for you.
Yeah, they are always happy to make them.
And sometimes it's just the hand to mouth ritual, it's like having a drink in your hand, you're socializing. Like most of us are drawn to the ceremony and the ritual. That's part of it. We want to be accepted, right? We want to be part of the fun. We want to be in community, right? We like that socialization, and it can be done without intoxication. And when you start to feel good in those environments without the alcohol, it just becomes more fun because you remember everything. You don't regret what you said, that kind of thing. You're not waking up with like the guilt and the shame, and that becomes more motivating over time.
Yes. And you're really, truly caring for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Very, very, in a very loving way.
Mm-hmm. And as a parent too, I mean, that was one of the biggest gifts I think I could have given my son, was just being present. Because I noticed a lot of the times I would check out after work. I would find myself, after a hard day, pulling over to get some beer or wine, coming home, having dinner, and then just wanting to shut everything out and be alone with my wine while my husband would read to my son and put him to bed. And I think, how many of those nights did I sort of miss out on as I watched my son grow up every day? Now it's like, I'm here, I'm present, I notice everything. It's not easy. And I think, our kids are watching us all the time. So they notice when we are sort of checked out. And so now that I'm more present, I've noticed a shift within our family. And I think my son has noticed how much better it feels for everybody without alcohol in the house. My husband just happened to quit when I did. He didn't really think that he had a problem, and I didn't expect him to. I said, I don't care if you drink. Honestly, I don't have judgment really around anybody that drinks. Like, I just want everybody to feel good and be happy, So I was like, no problem. But he just decided he didn't really feel like it anymore. And the longer that he went without it, the less he's wanted to go back to it. So I think that's made it a little bit easier too, is like I said, just not having it in the house. We'll have non-alcoholic beers here and there, and, tea, and sometimes we'll make little mocktails.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels good.
Good. I'm loving this. My favorite mocktail is a mojito.
Oh, mojito.
Yeah, mojito. So it's a mojito without any alcohol. So I just get some mint leaves and lime. I squeeze a full lime juice a full lime, and then put that into the bottom of the glass, and then get some mint and take a fork and just squish it up with the mint into the lemon, and then just add some soda water. And I always put it in a very fancy glass. So
yes,
yeah,
festive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it feels very special. It's a special drink. It's some time for myself, some good nutrients, and no alcohol. So.
Right. Very hydrating and delicious.
Yeah. Refreshing. All of those things.
I'll have to get your recipe.
Oh yeah, I'll put them in the recipe in the show notes too.
Okay.
I love it. Oh. So we have learned so much so far, Devon. And so we have a few moments left, and I always love to ask a certain question. And the question is, what is on your heart that you would like to share with our listeners?
I think if there's a voice inside that's telling you something kind of over and over again, to kind of go with it. Like, and it's okay to be different, or to make a change in your life. And sounds cliche, but it's never too late to do something radically different or make a shift for your health at any time. And that there's support out there, and that you don't have to be alone. And to just listen to your intuition and go with it.
Love that. Listen to your intuition and go for it. Just go with it. Go with it. Thank you for sharing what's on your heart. So I have been following you on your social media,
Hmm.
and it's awesome. So we need to, I just would love to know a little bit about social media and just kind of how you learn to do all of that.
Well, I've been on Facebook for a long time as well as Instagram. It's funny. I know they're the same company, but I don't go on Facebook that much. For some reason that feels really overwhelming, that platform, but I really like Instagram. I think it's like very aesthetically pleasing, and I have it very kind of curated where things are showing up that feel really inspiring to me. So I kind of started using it a year ago to share about my alcohol-free journey, and just kind of got bold and just started showing up and said, "Hey, I'm not drinking anymore," and have shared little tidbits of how that's been for me along the way. And, you get likes and comments and things, but what has felt really touching and good is when I've had people that haven't liked or commented, but have sent me private messages and have thanked me and said, "Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Like, I quit drinking because of what you shared." And that's what makes me feel like, okay, this is making a difference, is helping people, make decisions that help them feel good about who they are and how they're stepping forward in the world. And in terms of like business kind of thing, I mean, I don't know. I sort of don't know what I'm doing. I just feel like just showing up, and someone I know said, when the fear of people judging you becomes less than the fear of just showing up and sharing your medicine or your story, something like that. I'm probably just totally botching this thing, but the point is just to kind of like be okay with being a little bit vulnerable, and you never know who's going to respond to that. And if somebody doesn't like it, that's fine. They can just scroll past it. But I tend to share a lot in my stories these days, but I actually am making it a goal more to show up more often and do posts more often and just share things that can help each other, inspire each other with our health, and still some stuff around drinking. So I did make a post this morning about how important it is to have breakfast. So I think I'll be showing up more on the feed. Yeah. And I don't have a website yet, so I'm kind of just mainly using Instagram as my website until I build something. Just been kind of networking in a more organic way through word of mouth and people that I know. And I had put together a survey about alcohol a little while ago, and I had it up there on the link on my Instagram. I thought about putting it back up again. I might, but yeah, guess I don't have a website just yet, but I probably will. All these things take time, as you become an entrepreneur, the social media, the website, all the things, right? How do you get
All the
clients?
things. It does. And you know what? We don't have to have everything together in the first day.
True. Yeah.
Let's be patient with ourselves. And we have our family lives, and many of
Hmm.
us are still nursing at the bedside and figuring
Right.
things out as you go. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to not know what you're doing, but to take action, right? Like, just kind of like someone said, yeah,
Totally
it's
like
when you
that.
take action is when you learn. Like, you do something, you're like, well, that didn't go over very well. Oh, that went really well. Okay.
That's me, definitely every day. Learning as we go and just taking action, whether it's small steps or big steps, but just
Hmm.
taking that action.
I
Yeah.
think too, just to put out there, it's like having a community of support. Like, I've been setting an intention or putting a prayer out around. I do have a friend who's an entrepreneur like me, but connecting with, people who are on a similar path to help inspire each other and kind of cheer each other on. I think that's huge. Like, whether you're getting sober or you're starting a new business, is to have people that you can talk to about it, because it can feel a little bit lonely
Mm-hmm.
when you're starting something new on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, who can you kind of reach out to or have a weekly phone call with, or, starting a local group or a mastermind where you can toss ideas off one another, and, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we're so much better when we're together.
Hmm.
It's very difficult to do everything by yourself. So, and we've learned that in nursing. Nursing
Hmm.
is very autonomous. We're doing things on our own all the time.
Hmm.
We forget that we can ask for help and we
Yeah.
can. And we're much more powerful when we do.
Right. Remembering that we're part of a team, right? We're not supposed to be doing this alone.
That's right. That's right. Oh, so Devon, how can we find you?
Well, I think Instagram's a good place at Nurse Donkin, NURSEDONKIN.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Facebook as well under Devon Donkin, but I do play around on Instagram more, tend to have a little bit more fun over there. And
Hey.
yeah.
Okay. Well, we will share the links where people can find you. And definitely, if you are considering exploring sobriety, Devon Donkin is Nurse Donkin is,
Yep.
is a great choice to help with that transition and be supportive in all the ways that she can. All right. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and ask you just two really quick questions, and you have to answer whatever comes to the top of your mind. You ready for it?
Okay.
Ready. All right. Devon Donkin, pre-alcohol or post-alcohol?
Post-alcohol, meaning done with it.
Done with it. Tell us why.
Let's see. It just feels like it's just the real me. Not that I wasn't who I was. I don't regret who I was, when I was drinking, but I just think that I just feel more alive and more present now without it.
Post-alcohol Devon. Yes. Okay. And the Integrative Nurse Coaches in Action podcast, the ACTION is an acronym, stands for authentic, curious, truthful, inspiring, open, and nurturing. Which word stands out for you? Authentic, curious, truthful, inspiring, open, nurturing.
I love nurturing, but I also love curious. I think having the curiosity, just that ongoing curiosity about life and what would happen if I did this, and like, oh, this is a new day. I think just, being curious about new possibilities and experimentation and being open to new things.
Ah, perfect. I love it. Nothing better than being curious. Although being authentic, truthful, inspiring, open, and nurturing are all good things.
They're all good.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Devon, for being a guest on our podcast. We really appreciate all your wisdom and all your nuggets of goodness that you've shared with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and a lot of fun. And I forgot to mention too, you can find me on Instagram, and also feel free to send me a direct message or a private message if you have questions about anything alcohol related, or if you're looking for support, or you just have questions. I'm open to answering them for you.